Minister of Social Development Lindiwe Zulu will relaunch the She Decides movement against alcohol and drugs this festive season. The campaign comes at a time when Stats SA has revealed that many young people face mental health challenges due to alcohol and drug use. Joining us now is the Minister via Zoom. Thanks for your time, Minister. So adolescents are dealing with a lot, whether it's mental health issues, alcohol, drug use, early and unprotected sex. So how does this She Decides movement aim to intervene, address these challenges?
Thank you very much, Clement. Let me just start by clarifying that She Decides is a global movement, and I was invited in my capacity as somebody that has been in the struggle for the emancipation of women and continue to fight for the rights of women and girls. However, I thought me being just an individual there without bringing on board other institutions that include government and other institutions into it in order for it to be able to assist us in championing the challenges that are faced by women in general, by adolescent girls in particular. She Decides obviously focuses on reproductive rights, but I think that we need to expand it more than that, because long before the woman has to make, the young girl has to make that decision. We've got to make sure that we create a conducive environment for her to be able to make the right decisions on everything that she decides on. So that is the background.
Okay. So my understanding is that the movement advocates for even investment for comprehensive sexuality education to reduce the unintended pregnancies, including teenage pregnancy. But is the focus here only girls? What about their male counterparts? So as you discuss how to expand it, is there a plan to also include talking to the boys, or specifically the focus is only on girls?
Thank you very much for that question, because this is what we are picking up, and we've been picking this up for a while, that young boys also are feeling that they are left behind. And as we empower young girls to be able to make the decisions, young boys also want to be included. Yesterday when we launched it, we had adolescents, both boys and girls. But specifically, She Decides is focused on young girls and young women on the basis that when you look at the statistics and you look at the challenges and you look at how they've been facing challenges, including that of violence against them, including the fact that even at home, girls are expected to do way, way more, from issues of chores in the house, from cooking and everything. So the focus was on them. And as far as She Decides is concerned, especially because it had something to do with reproductive rights, and therefore it had to deal with, it's the woman that ends up being pregnant, it's the woman that has to carry the child for 9 months, it's the woman that ultimately has to take care of the child in most instances. However, I do want to say to you, Clement, and to your viewers, that our approach, considering the fact that issues of young boys are being raised, we will not ignore that. That's why at the launch yesterday we had both women and girls, and we want to say to our society and our communities, it's time we gave attention to both boys and girls. And I know that there's quite a number of men's organizations who have been raising this issue, including organizations that have stood up very firmly and said, what about the boys? And therefore, particularly from a Department of Social Development's point of view, we cannot ignore that. It's our call to our community, to our society, to say that we must build a nation of young people, both boys and girls, men and women. We grow them up by creating a conducive environment for all of them, so that ultimately they can see their future, ultimately they can see what are their contributions towards themselves, first and foremost, but also to society in general.
So since the initial launch of the campaign, what kind of impact have you seen?
Look, the launch we just launched now, yesterday. We only launched it yesterday in the Free State, and I wish to thank everyone that turned up to it there. It's a new concept. While it is a global concept, it is a new concept completely for South Africa. But what I wouldn't want to see is a continuous creation of this organization and that organization. This organization, which is a global organization, and we are trying to ensure that within South Africa, we put it within the different structures, both of government, but also of civil society and other organizations, because it has to be focused. Yes, it has to be focused on women. Yes, it has to be focused on reproductive rights and sexual education. But we believe that even sexual education, even reproductive rights, both men and women have to have an appreciation, have to have an understanding, and have to take responsibility, because quite frankly, a woman wouldn't make herself pregnant alone. Yeah. And the one who makes the woman pregnant or the young girl pregnant has to have an appreciation of what are those reproductive rights and health rights we are talking about.
Yeah. And how effective have other campaigns been that the department has launched? I know there's Show Me, there is other campaigns that you have launched as a department. There was YOLO as well, with a focus on teenage pregnancy hotspot areas across the country. What kind of impact are you seeing from those specific campaigns that have been running for some time?
These campaigns have been very effective, but not extremely impactful, because if they were, we would see less, for instance, of teenage pregnancy that we see in schools and young girls leaving schools because they are pregnant. They are programs that we need to upscale, in my view. A lot of work has gone into it, because YOLO is focusing on teenage pregnancy. And I must say here, the Deputy Minister has been really crisscrossing the country, particularly because she has been leading in as far as the YOLO program is concerned, including Chomi. She's also been leading in that. However, my view is that while we have those programs, the effective of them needs to be upscaled by partnering with NPOs, NGOs, community-based organizations, partnering with schools, so that we not only have the programs and talk about them and deal with them when we are calling people to Izimbizo, for instance. It is something that has to be sustainable, that has to be spoken about, something that has to be supported by parents, by teachers, by civil society, even including traditional leaders in the rural areas. So all these programs are effective, but they need to be upscaled, and they need to be owned, in particular by the communities, because it's one thing for me as a minister or the DM to go and have those programs and then leave the communities, and then the communities do not really adopt these programs and talk about them throughout. That's why, for instance, when we talk about the gender-based violence and the programs of gender-based violence, we're on 16 days of activism, which will be closed by the Minister of Women, Youth and People with Disability, Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma, in KwaZulu-Natal, together with the Premier, Nomusa Dube. They will be closing that. We don't want to say it's a close for the 16 days of just highlighting the issues. But this is something that has to be 365 days a year. And as a Department of Social Development also, we launched a program quite a while back that is called Asikulume, Haribuwe, Haribulele, come, let's talk to each other. And these programs cannot be as impactful as they can be unless they are adopted by communities. And when you say Asikulume, it mustn't be the minister coming there to talk. It must be the leaders in the communities. It must be the churches. It must be the NPOs that consistently engage on these issues. It's Sunday tomorrow. So it is in the churches that abafundisi no bani bana belong to the churches. They have to consistently talk about these things, because these things are affecting them. and affecting their congregants, affecting the people who come to the church, or affecting people who come to traditional households. They affect them on day-to-day basis. That's why we want our communities to really stand up also. The same things that we did during COVID-19, where we stood up and connected and used our resources effectively. Daily, we got used to behaving in ways that we were not used to before. The president has said, for instance, gender-based violence is a pandemic in South Africa, and he's calling upon us to put the same energy as we did during COVID-19.
So the festive season is upon us, and young people will be engaging in the so-called pens down celebrations. What awareness are you raising as the Social Development Department, especially around alcohol and drug use?
Well, alcohol, unfortunately, in South Africa is one of the most used and abused, if I may say so. If we can call it a drug, I don't know, among South Africans. The biggest problem in South Africa is binge drinking. So the programs that we have, starting with the program that we had yesterday, it was also related to talking to young people about the fact that drinking and abusing alcohol, I mean, listen, Clement, it was painful to hear that already we lost 2 young people because of binge drinking during this so-called period of pens down. My view, and I think that it could be a view of many, is that there's nothing wrong with the young people celebrating the fact that they've spent all these years at school and they're looking forward towards university, technical, or anything like that. There's nothing wrong with the celebration. What is wrong is the abuse of alcohol that ends up even with a loss of life. Our campaigns are campaigns that are not by us alone as the Department of Social Development. Other departments are on the campaign together with us, your education, your health, your SAPs, and I'm very happy that we work very well with SAPs. What we have to look for is to preventative measures. Now, preventative measures also speak to parents being able to engage with their children. Parents also appreciating that when their children see them also drinking in the manner in which they drink, the children will also think it's a good thing to do. So we are calling upon our communities, calling upon house to house, street to street, community to community to say, we need to defeat this together. Okay. Parents must ask themselves their question, where are their children at 9, 10, 11, 12, at 2 a.m.? Where is your 13, 14-year-old at that time? And when your child comes home already intoxicated, what is it that you do? One of the other programs we have as a Department of Social Development is dealing with families, assisting families.
All right.
And that's why we have social workers, albeit we don't have enough of those social workers, because if we had enough social workers, they would proactively visit homes at this time and be speaking to homes, because I can tell you, Clement, in our communities, most people know which of the families and which of the children are troubled children who drink too much. And this thing of celebrating to a point of thinking that when we are drunk, and then tomorrow you have to talk about it and tell people how drunk you are, and you think that's life. It's us as parents, grandparents, and everybody to take charge and take responsibility to assist our children.
Thank you for making time for us, Minister Zulu, the Minister of Social Development.